This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
And welcome everybody to a comics edition of the Animanicast.
You asked for it, you got it! It's the Animaniac Attack Marathon, featuring all the episodes that you voted to be your favorites of all time. 28 of the very best, including The Macadamia Nut, Potty Emergency, King Yakko, Super Strong Warner Sips, Clown It Out, Yakko's World, The Otto's Butt Song, The Please Get a Life Foundation, and 3 great Wackarati. And Yakko might even sing your name, so don't miss a second. The Animaniac Attack Marathon, this July 4th weekend on Kids WB.
Celebrate the 4th with a real...
And welcome everybody to the Animanicast. We are the only podcast out there that's dedicated to the animated series, Animaniacs. And here we explore the series episode by episode. We talk about all the cultural references and gags. And in the end, we give every episode a water tower rating. And of course, we also talk about, Tiny Toon Adventures, Pinky the Brain, and Freakazoid. But today, we're talking about an Animaniacs comic. Ooh. And we have a very special guest. I am Joey, and joining me, socially distanced on the other side of the room, is Nathan Sheep. And socially distanced much further away is our other co-host, Kelly.
Hello.
And also socially distanced in the Atlanta area, of course, is our guest. She's an artist. She's an animator, a freelance animator. She's an Animaniacs superfan. It's Joanna Davidovich.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show with us. I wanted to have you be on for the longest time because I've admired your artwork and you're just seeing your style over the years, and I know you're just such a huge fan. I had to get you on the show.
I am. Oh, I feel like I finally have earned the honor of being an Animaniacs superfan. Oh. Like I'm tickled pink.
Well, Joanna, if you folks out there don't know about Joanna Davidovich, well, let's get into this. Joanna, can you please tell us about yourself? Tell us about your, I guess, what have you done as an artist?
Well, I'm a freelance animation artist. I've worked on commercials and stuff for broadcasts and some series, everything from animation, storyboarding, character design, just anything that I can do to just keep drawing and get by. I've done stuff for on air for Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. I've done breakfast cereal spots for Cocoa Puffs. I've done this weirdly popular bumpers for PBS Kids with Dot and Dash. Like people really remember them for some reason. I did a couple shows storyboarding on Ugly Americans, which nobody remembers, and Monica's Gang, which is Cartoon Network Latin America, so nobody here would probably know about it, but it's a pretty cute show. And I've just done so much, I can't keep it all in my head. It's the life of a freelancer. I do a million little bitty things, but not like one big thing that everybody would know about. I'm trying to think what would be the highest profile thing that I've done, and I just can't think of one. They're all just a million little things, but it has paid the bills for the last 15 some odd years, and I get to do stuff on my own. So a few years back, I did a independent cartoon called Monkey Rag, which is still doing pretty well. And I have hopes of doing more original content just like that, like old timey fun, nonsense music cartoons. And it, it's very much inspired by Looney Tunes and, Tex Avery and Animaniacs, obviously. So I don't know if that makes it any clearer who I am, but it is who I am. So let me know if I need to clarify.
No, that's fantastic.
Or shorten that. That was like a really long run-on sentence.
No, that was a perfect run-on sentence. Nathan, why don't you go for our next question here?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, can I just jump to like what I really want to know, which is about the Animaniacs Kids WB promo.
Yes.
You were featured on this promo. They call you out by name as the nerdiest person, the biggest fan.
Yeah.
So how did that? How did you possibly?
Okay.
Yes.
Let me set the stage. It is 1990. Oh my gosh, 1998, I think, or 1999. I can't remember.
Close.
It's when,
yes.
yeah, it's when Kids WB was giving Animaniacs like this big kiss off. They were just kicking it off the network, but for some reason wanted to celebrate it before it went to find its new temporary home, as it turned out, on Cartoon Network. So they had this big marathon called the Animaniac Attack Marathon on the weekend, the 4th of July weekend in 1999. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 1999. And they had a promo as a part of it, say, we're going to air all of the fans' favorite episodes. So send us a postcard to this address with your favorite episode. And, I'm a teenager at that point, but like, oh, I've got so many favorite episodes. So I made my own postcards. I made my own like address labels with all my fan art on it. And I just kept sending postcards as I just kept thinking of like, well, I really like Hercule Yakko, but I mean, King Yakko, I mean, that's a classic. You cannot not have that. But then Taming of the Screwy, and I just couldn't pick one. So I sent about 30 postcards, 30 or 40. And then I set my VCR to record for that weekend. And and the prize, as they said, if you send in your favorite episode, Yakko would sing your name in a sort of parody of Yakko's World. So it would sing like Josh and Katie and Alex and Amelia, and I just really wanted him to sing my name. So that also was inspiring me to send a lot of postcards. And I was recording that weekend, and they had these cute little bumpers during the marathon where they would the Warners would talk about what they just played and preview what was coming up. And they were previewing the Please, Please, Please Get a Life Foundation. And they showed the big nerd, I think he was eventually called Stephen Puntner. And they were just talking about, they were watching the cartoon of Steven typing at his computer, and they said, how many letters do you think this guy wrote Kids WB? And then Yakko said, not as many as Joanna Davidovich, that's for sure. And
Kids WB. Not as many as Joanna Davidovich, that's for sure.
I'm a bigger nerd than the fat guy from the Please, Please, Please Get a Life Foundation. Yakko said so.
I think I blacked out for a minute. And then I think it was a Sunday morning. It was either Saturday or Sunday morning, but either way, my dad was sleeping in at that time. And I remember tearing into his room and jumping on the bed, and he's asleep. And so he's thinking the house is on fire or something. I'm like, they said my name. Ah! And then I just left. And he comes out, it's like, what just happened? It's like, they said my name. And he's like, I can't deal with this right now. And then later on, after he had coffee, I explained it, and he was like, well, that's pretty cool.
Definitely. I've seen the promo. It's kind of almost like a Mystery Science Theater version of
yeah, so they could save on animation.
Yeah, that was great. Well, that's fantastic. Kelly, what question do you have for Joanna?
I would like to know, why do you love Animaniacs?
Oh, how long do we have? So, again, let me set the stage. I'm 10 years old. I'm the biggest Tiny Toon fan of all time. I love the show. But I'd been seeing previews for this new show called Animaniacs, which looks a lot like Tiny Toons. It actually reminds me a lot of the Toontown episode, the two-tone Tiny Toon episode, and also Fields of Honey, which were some of my favorite episodes where they're talking about the old Looney Tunes characters that were forgotten. And it just looked like, wow, they made like a whole show about my favorite Tiny Toon episodes. And I still remember September 13th, 1993. I'm such a nerd. I am watching Tiny Toons. It was a rerun. I was sort of sick of the reruns by then. I loved Tiny Toons, but it was like, come on, make new ones. Come on. And then right after Tiny Toons, Animaniacs came on. And it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in my life. I don't know exactly how to explain it. I mean, I'd seen Looney Tunes, I'd seen Tiny Toons, but Animaniacs was something different. It was something really special. I think it was just the characters were so unlike any other characters I'd ever seen before. They seemed so real. Like they inhabited a real world. as cartoon characters, and they're commenting on our real world. Like, they don't live in Acme Acres. They live in Burbank. Like, I could go visit them. They live in that water tower. Like, when I visit Burbank and drive by the water tower, I get excited because I'm like, that's where the Warners live. Because it's like this really neat concept where it's tied to reality, but it's completely off the wall, fantastical, and I guess I'd always had this love of the idea of people living side by side with cartoons. Roger Rabbit was always one of my favorite movies. Mm-hmm. And it's just in love with this idea that cartoons are real and they just, have this different kind of existence, but they just are here with us. And I liked how they did that in the show. And I loved this weird mythology they set up with the Warners, and the characters themselves were just so appealing. I think they're this perfect combination of archetypes, and they work so well as individual. I'm talking specifically about the Warners. Like, they work as individual cartoon characters. Like, they can carry cartoons by themselves, and then and paired off, they work really well together. Like, Yakko and Wacko work really well together because they've got that, wacky boy energy, and Dot and Wacko work well together because they're like second bananas working together to, I don't know. They always do great stuff in the background whenever Yakko's doing a monologue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Yakko and Dot work well together because they're both a little bit sardonic, and it's like, and then as a trio, they're explosive, and it's just like this cartoon math that has never been so perfect. And I just fell in love, and I never stopped loving those characters. I just devour anything that they're in.
Do you have a favorite Warner sibling?
Yakko, obviously.
Why? Why is Yakko the best?
Because I wanted to marry him. He was so perfect.
Joanna,
I loved him
there's a GIF. There's like an animated GIF I saw, and it kind of circular when you go on, like, Giphy or whatever the things are, and you type in Animaniacs or Yakko. There's one where I think it's Yakko's on there, and he kind of raises his eyebrows and then gets chased off by. Is that you? Is that your animation? Am I thinking somebody else?
Should I Google it? That sounds familiar. It sounds like it's from my Cartoon Crush video.
Yeah, it might be. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. If I go to, oh gosh, now I'm putting put on the spot. But it's
let's ask you questions now.
I'm typing Yakko into Giphy.
Well,
hang on here. Yakko. I'll just type in Yakko.
Just Google Yakko.
Yeah, there's a lot of Yakkos. Maybe that's a wrong thing to do. But now it's showing. No. But I want to say it was a girl with a cup on the head, and then chasing him off or something, or hugging him or something like that. So yes. Now you have your art, by the way. I should point out your. I guess is the term your avatar or your online kind of caricature of yourself, essentially?
Yeah, it's more like an avatar.
Yeah, is it just you? Is it you with a big cup on your head, right?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because in middle school, my sister got me a domain name, Cup of Joe, and I was like, oh, it's so funny because it's like a pun with my name because I go by Joe, and I just stuck with it forever, and I'll never change it because I'm lazy at this point. It's a brand at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's not really much to do with it. And also, don't go on Giphy and search for Yakko Girl because it's just filthy.
Oh gosh. Okay, you got it. Oh yes,
things you just had to learn the hard way.
Exactly.
And I was like, when am I going to learn to just not Google things?
Yeah.
Or not search for things? I just have to learn to live with the mystery.
I will, yeah, and I'll say it again for the millionth time. Never Google Minerva Mink. Don't
anything. Yeah.
Just stay away. Just
watch the episode.
Watch the episode. Be happy with that, and don't Google it. Okay.
Speaking of Minerva Mink, what's your favorite Animaniacs side character besides Pinky and the Brain?
Well, Slappy, obviously.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. She's such a unique character, and she brings like this kind of energy you've never seen in any cartoon aimed at kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's Golden Girls before people started, pretending they liked Golden Girls all of a sudden.
I think Slappy has grown in popularity, especially I know with me. When I was a kid, I liked Slappy as a kid, but I didn't really like Slappy as much as I like Slappy now.
Yeah, I would put her with the Good Feathers, and they were all equal to me at the time.
For me, Slappy was head and shoulders above all the other ones. I like her better than Pinky and the Brain.
Wow, there you go.
Really? See, yeah, that's.
Mm-hmm. I always did.
I think she could have definitely had her own spinoff. I still would love to see. We always talk about what we'd love to see. I'd love to see Slappy and Skippy together now, and I think it was Tom. Was it? Tom was on. I think he said that Skippy's still living in her basement or something.
He's definitely behind the idea.
He's a millennial who's kind of in the basement, won't move out.
Nate Ruger's still doing the voice.
Yeah, Nate Ruger has to do the voice.
Fantastic. When they said Animaniacs Reboot, that was one of the first things that popped into my head. I was like, well, obviously they have to do that. And so that's add that to the list of disappointments.
What are your thoughts on the upcoming reboot?
Oh, that is such a good segue. I'm so proud of myself. So the more I think about the Animaniacs reboot, the more it sort of turns into this old vaudeville routine. Do you know That's Good, That's Bad? They did it on Animaniacs once.
You'll have to refresh my memory.
Well, That's Good is like...
I know good idea, bad idea.
You can they did it in Hooray for North Hollywood, but it basically the pattern is you tell a story and then the audience is like, oh, that's good, and the next line of the story is like, oh, that's bad.
That's bad. Yes,
and
The Simpsons. The Simpsons did it as well.
Monkey Paw.
Yeah, that's old vaudeville. It's part of why I love Animaniacs now. It was the last link to vaudevillian humor that we had in our culture. And I love vaudeville humor. It's basically just jokes. And in comedy now, we don't have jokes anymore. Have you noticed? There's no jokes. There's cringe. There's awkward silences. There's mean-spiritedness. There's nihilism. There's sarcasm. But there's no jokes. Family Guy has some jokes, I guess, but it's just so mean that it's not enjoyable. But I swear to God, we don't have jokes in comedy anymore. And that's why comedy, I feel like, is just gone. It's dead. And that's why I felt so strongly about wanting the original staff of Animaniacs to come back, because I haven't seen anybody have this kind of respect for humor, classic humor, the way those writers did. And, there's a lot of shows that are funny, but they still don't have, the best example I can think of is The Amazing World of Gumball, where it's a funny show, but they're not really jokes. It's randomness. It's the humor of randomness, it's internet humor, where the internet doesn't really have jokes. We have memes and we have randomness and awkwardness, but not really jokes. Animaniacs needs jokes, so I went off on a tangent again. I'm going to just lasso this back to my original premise of this vaudeville routine. So let me set the stage. Animaniacs has been announced to have a revival, a reboot. And I'm like, oh, that's good. And they said, but it's Warner Brothers, and Sam Register's in charge of Warner Brothers now. I'm like, oh, that's bad, because their, reboot track record is not so great. And I said, oh, but Steven Spielberg is spearheading it. Oh, that's good. But Tom Ruegger is nowhere in sight and was not asked to rejoin the reboot. Oh, that's bad. But Yakko, Wacko, and Dot and Pinky the Brain are back. Oh, that's good. But probably none of the other characters. Well, that's bad. I like I said, Slappy is the one that she has more story. She and Skippy have more story. And they're the ones who obviously should be rebooted, and the fact they're not is, that's really bad. And I said, oh, but they're getting the voice cast back. Oh, that's good, but none of the original writers. That's bad. They're getting frame-by-frame animation. Oh, that's good. And they're also getting an orchestra, and and recording it, like doing scoring sessions like they used to. Oh, that's really good. But there's no telling like what the quality of that will be. I mean, I'm glad they're putting the money into it because it's not cheap. But again, it's like I want something to sink my teeth into. I want like a piece of news that's so juicy and delicious. I can be like, this is going to be a great show. And they just haven't given us anything like that. And they've been so close to the chest about the details that they do release that it just makes me think if they had anything that they were proud of, they would have shown us. Like the Looney Tunes revival that Warner Brothers is doing, they showed a whole minute-long cartoon of like a proof of concept, and it was fantastic. Dynamite Dance was really, really good. So I'm really looking forward to Looney Tunes. And with Animaniacs, it's supposed to be premiering like
this year,
last month.
Oh yeah,
I think
like originally.
We've heard so many different things. We heard fall 2020, and then we heard after that from some people working on the show. They said, well, actually, we heard summer 2020. But then, that you're saying exactly what we thought, Joanna. It's like, why haven't they said anything about this? Why are they holding back? And now, of course, with COVID-19 and everything, the chances, and with probably things like scoring sessions and perhaps even animation being pushed off and everything into homes and remote stuff, it's possible that we could even see early 2021 on this, if not late 2020.
Yeah, I think it'll still be this year. And any delays would be to season 2, if anything.
Yeah,
I think.
perhaps.
So.
Even if it was delayed, there should have been a trailer or teaser or something.
Yes.
Now.
All we've gotten officially is the original press release with that one image of the Warners and Pinky and the Brain. All the other things
which was old production art.
Yeah, and the only other thing was, everything else, like the voice actor stuff, that was just with Rob Paulson's book. That was not an official release. That was just, he put it, he wrote about it, and he told them, like, hey, this is coming out. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like, we probably
It's
still
so
wouldn't know for
weird.
sure.
Yeah.
Had it not been in the book.
It is very confusing and weird.
Not have announced the voice actors yet. And it's...
Yeah.
To me, it makes me think that they're not settled on what they're doing. Like, I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't put it past them to just that they've scrapped stuff and they're redoing stuff because they don't want to put something out there and have some sort of, reaction to it, either positive or negative. Well, probably. Let's be honest. It's going to be negative. It is 2020.
It's the internet.
So,
it's
well, when Thundercats Roar put out their initial thing, and everybody freaked out of how different it looked and how different it felt. I think Warner Brothers from then was just like, "Whoa, okay, well, maybe we should."
Well, yeah. With Thundercats Roar, though, what were they thinking?
Well, yeah, that's a.
Sometimes you get what you deserve.
Yeah, well, sometimes.
Well, we've talked on here about the Star Wars fandom too, and how anytime you bring back something so beloved, can be very polarizing. And I wonder if some of that scared them.
Yeah, it's so strange now how everything isn't just an opinion. Everything is like a battlefield. Like, you can't just say this design is unappealing without being cast into hell. Or if you like something, then you're just like, oh, then you're just an apologist for such and such. It's not safe to say anything strong. Like, I mean, you've heard me talk for however long I've been talking. I've got strong opinions about this, but I don't usually like to go on social media and say what I'm thinking about any old thing, because I don't want to invite any kind of vitriol. And I know with Warner Brothers, they're probably being cautious, but you have to make a stand at some point and be proud of what you're producing. And if you're not proud of what you're producing, you're not instilling any kind of confidence in an audience that says, well, if you're not proud of what you're making, why should I spend my time watching it?
Yep. these are all the. It's like
right on.
It's hitting every little concern that we've had, Joanna, and I hope that I mean I honestly at this point I don't foresee, especially with conventions being canceled and everything. We'll see if San Diego Comic-Con is canceled. That would honestly be the first place I would think that if they were going to make a big premiere of something, perhaps would be San Diego Comic-Con. That would be like honestly their last big. But really, they should have had it last year in San Diego Comic-Con because that's their time to promote the stuff that's
and
coming
it was right
up
before the Animaniacs live
in concert in San Diego.
Yeah,
it was just crickets.
Can I tell you? It's always been kind of heartbreaking to be a fan of Animaniacs because Warner Brothers does not give a crap about its legacy properties. And I've felt this ever since the 90s. I mean, how else do you explain Space Jam? Seriously. Why did they do that? And all they think is, it's like, this is just these vehicles for making money. And I'm not talking about the artists, obviously. I'm talking about the people in charge who hate cartoons. And I don't know how they get these positions of power, these people who hate cartoons. They have all the power over cartoons. They just say, okay, Bugs Bunny's been around for, decades and decades. People obviously, like this character. So what can we do to squeeze money out of him? Let's make him a baby. People like babies. Okay. Bunny baby. Okay, how about this? Let's make him really jaggedy and angular and put him in space. And they'll like Bugs Bunny in space. Well, you know what? Those commercials with Michael Jordan, people seem to like them. Let's turn that into a feature film.
Yeah.
What? And they do everything in their power to just circumnavigate the globe of making money around this character instead of actually letting this character be this character.
I just realized this all could also pertain to Yoda. Make him a baby, throw him into space, but it actually worked for that. So
that is perfection, and I love all the Yoda toys, and I am totally a sucker for all the merchandising.
I know, I love it too.
I haven't seen The Mandalorian, but I've seen Baby Yoda obviously by now, and that's such a cute design. Oh my god!
But yeah, I was just thinking he goes into space too.
She goes into space.
He's a baby.
Oh my goodness!
You can see. If Disney ever decides to be like Warner Brothers and treat Yoda the way Warner Brothers treats their legacy characters, you'll see Yoda selling, basketballs. And,
Yeah, once he joins a basketball team, that's when we got to worry.
There's too much respect for Yoda, and also I would have to beat them up. But,
and Kelly may be small, but she will beat you up. When it comes to Yoda.
Fight over Yoda. I'll fight over Yoda, and I'll fight over Spielberg.
Well, let's fight over Spielberg. I've lost a lot of respect for him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, this is dangerous because you're both in Atlanta, so I don't want to start a street fight in Atlanta.
No, it'd be like the Jets and the Sharks.
Yes.
Yes. I will snap away at
the
Steven
good feathers
Spielberg.
and the sparrows or whatever.
Well, we're trying to get Spielberg on the show still.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I think Spielberg has a lot of love for animation, and I think he has a lot of respect for the characters. Anything that's going on with all this, I think, has to do with the studio executives.
What I don't understand is why apparently he sold the idea of an Animaniacs reboot as doing it completely sans original crew.
I think in Rob Paulson's book, he basically promoted it as the voices are coming back. Like he had pictures of Rob Paulson, Tress MacNeille, and Jess Harnell saying, and these guys are going to be on it. And as important as that is, I think it was kind of I agree. It seemed kind of like the focus definitely should have been on the voice actors, but also with the original creative team.
And they may have asked Paul Rugg.
They did. They asked Paul Rugg, but
he declined. But
yes.
So there may have been other people that they may have asked. But yeah, the point is that none of them are.
Yeah, we do know that Paul Rugg was asked. Yes,
the fact Tom Ruegger created these characters. Yeah. He created Yakko, Wacko, and Dot, and to not even show the courtesy of saying, hey, we're doing a reboot, but we're taking it in another direction. We just wanted to let you know. He found out when everybody else found out. I just... what Ruegger built at Steven Spielberg's request, I mean, it was a tall order. And Tom Ruegger and his team did an amazing job and an unparalleled job, not just with Animaniacs, but also with Tiny Toons and just the whole Amblin Warner Brothers collab from the 90s. And you think that would have earned just like a tiny nod of respect for something that's so dear? I just don't understand. I don't understand.
I agree. I mean, there's 20 plus years of history between all these people, and I really think there must be a reason, not necessarily a good reason, but there must be a reason why he wasn't involved, or at least even spoken to.
Just like a heads up, like.
Yeah, as a professional courtesy.
Yeah.
Maybe someone was supposed to do it and drop the ball, or I don't know. I mean, because it doesn't sound like Tom Ruegger and Spielberg actually had a lot of personal one-on-one interactions. So I would think it would have, come from somebody.
Or just a fax.
Studio. Yeah.
Like apparently Spielberg faxed the production every day. Just send Tom Ruegger a fax.
Yeah. Get that fax machine up and running again.
Yeah, dust it off.
Do it
give
from
him
the
a call.
405.
Anyway, do it from the 405. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to get so wound up about it.
Well,
I know
it's something
this isn't.
I'm glad that you do, because we'd love to have you on again, especially when it gets closer. Hopefully after a trailer or something like that, and we can all dish and get
really
together,
passionate
especially with your knowledge of, because the one thing we don't have really is knowledge of art and art style and things like that. We just look at stuff and we go, oh, that looks good. But until then, why don't you tell us, where can people go and check out your work?
You can find me as at Joe the Zet or Joanna Davidovich on all social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and my personal website. Even though it needs to be updated, you can check it out at cupofjoe.net, CUPOJO.net.
Fantastic.
Cupojo.
Oh, and of course, she has a lot of great stuff on TeePublic as well, which you should. I mean, I'm sure that's all linked.
There's also some YouTube videos too.
Yeah. Yes.
I need to start pushing my merch.
Yes. Well, we have some of it on our TeePublic store, the teepublic.animanicast.com. We have a few of your designs up there that are fantastic. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Well, let's go ahead and get into our next section right here. We're going to talk about an Animaniacs comic book. Here we go.
Shut up. That's John Mariano. He's the voice of Bobby from The Goodfeathers. And you're listening to the Animanicast. Will you untie me now? Shh, go it. I'm listening to the program.
So we're going to talk about Animaniacs issue number 19 today. And issue number 19 of Animaniacs came out in November of 1996. And where can you find this? Well, you can find it, of course, probably in some used comic book stores or online. Actually, I saw it. This was one of the most expensive comic books on eBay that I saw when it came to Animaniacs. The cover by Miran Kim, which we'll talk about in just a few moments, is actually available on eBay for $1,500. So you can get
best offer.
What?
Or best offer. You can get this cover, the original art, for about $1,500. I did see one person putting up this comic book. I don't know what the condition was, but I think I want to say it was for $5,000.
What?
Now,
What?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm heading to eBay right after this.
Now, with that being said, I also saw people posting it on eBay recently for like $5 or something.
That doesn't mean people are buying it.
Yeah,
at that
exactly.
price.
and the reason is, we'll get into it in a little bit, because there's like some really good artists in this issue. And so you can find it on eBay or online places, or of course, if you type in Animaniacs comic book scan, you'll find a website or so that's on there. But just like we always say, folks, there's a lot of pop-up ads on that website, and they're not kid friendly.
Nope.
Beware. But Joanna, you actually have the comic book in your hands.
Yes, I have it right now, and I just realized that I'm missing the second story from my issue.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah,
We'll
but I
summarize
have
it.
the main story.
Oh, good.
I've got the the Y files.
Well, the second story apparently was so good that she had to rip it out. I don't know what happened when you were a kid.
So upset about it. Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Rip this out. Well, at any rate, let's go ahead and go over the first part right here. So let's talk about the cover, like I was saying, by Miran Kim. And this is a crazy cover. It features the Warners with kind of like if the Warners were put into an alien film, or it's I guess they're kind of dressed like the X-Files people. That kind of looks like a Men in Black / X-Files / whatever. And Kelly, I know you're a fan of Miran Kim's work, right?
Well, what I've seen of it, yes.
This picture.
She does some really intense stuff. She did some covers for the X-Files comic book, and it's kind of like this border between realistic / grotesque even, because this cover...
That's a good word to describe this.
Yes, it has... it's kind of weird because you have the normal Yakko, Wacko, and Dot. Dot has this very realistic flower on her head, which I...
Can I point out just that the Warners are traced from their model sheets?
Oh,
they're not... Yeah.
Okay.
It's not original drawing. They're just traced.
So there you go. But there's like skulls on this. There's weird roach or ant insect beings on the cover. There's sheep. There's all this stuff that actually shows up, of course, in the comic book, but it's all kind of in this collage of dark, inky weirdness. It's very... What did you guys think about the cover? Nathan, what do you think?
It was weird. That was all. I was like, is this funny? It's not funny. It's weird.
Definitely weird. Kelly, what did you think?
Well, I remember even when I got the comic back in the, I guess, 90s, I knew instantly it was a Miran Kim cover. And I honestly, most of my familiarity of her came from this one top Star Wars Galaxy card that she'd done of Luke. And it was just such a haunting image, and it really stayed with me. And her name got embedded in my mind because I have a really good talent, I guess you could say, of recognizing artistic styles. So like I said, I knew instantly it was hers, and I used to hang out at the comic book store a lot, so I'd see covers of the actual X-Files comics, and had some of those too. Because some of them were written by Kevin Anderson, who wrote some of the Star Wars books that I'm a big fan of. So it all kind of came full circle.
Yeah, it's definitely a creepy thing. And even that Star Wars a card that you were talking about, Kelly, you showed the picture, and I remember that shot. It's Luke basically in front of the burned down homestead with skeletons of Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen, and even a severed hand, which might be Luke's severed hand. I'm not exactly sure, but it's all kind of mixed into this weird grisly collage of...
And it was like tendons are coming from it.
It's weird. It's weird stuff, but it's very interesting. Joanna, what did you think about this this cover? It's very different than any other Animaniacs cover that you'll find in the comics, I think.
I hate it.
Yeah? Well, is this just not the style, what you're looking for with an Animaniacs thing?
I don't care so much about the style. I don't like the composition. I don't like the colors. I don't like the imagery. I don't like that she traced the Warners. I hate it.
Well
I'm
said.
just curious how, I mean, obviously you're a professional and you're in the industry, but how would someone like, say me, know that it was traced, or would I even be able to know it was traced by looking at it?
Just look at the... there wasn't much Animaniacs merchandise in the 90s, but what little of it there was, it was all taken from the Animaniacs model sheets. And so you'd see the same poses repeated over and over and over on everything. And it's exactly the same poses. It's exactly the same. It's just, I have these exact drawings on like a bunch of mugs and T-shirts and crap. It's traced.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always call it like the clip art or something like that almost. That
Yeah. It's like Animaniacs clip art.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not against, stretching the limits of what an Animaniacs comic cover can look like. I it'd be cool to do stuff that's more horrifying and more darker genre. It's just I don't like, nothing in this makes sense to me as a composition. I don't like collage. I just think it looks lazy, and she doesn't care about Animaniacs.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, it seems like she just drew a lot of pretty things, or like.
Yeah, I just remember also picking this up when I was a kid and just being like, ugh, God, I hate, and just look at Dot's hand. Dot is behind Yakko, but her hand is in front of Yakko.
Yeah.
And it's just little things like that show, I don't care. This is a paycheck. Let's move on.
Well, let's move on into the inside. This is good stuff. This is good stuff, Joanna. Do not be sorry. Do not be sorry.
I'm really overtired. I haven't slept.
This is good. So Cranky Joanna is good.
Now I feel bad for liking it.
You're wrong.
We'll have that fight scheduled later on, remember?
Well, anyway, good.
I'm going to perch on Scorsese's statue.
Oh, I'm going to perch on Scorsese's head.
Well, let's move on to inside the comic right here. Let's go move on to the Y Files. The Y Files is basically kind of an intro and outro segment of this comic book. So a little bit of it starts off right here. It was written by Dave King, illustrated by Charles Adlard, with the toon art being by Neil Sternecki. It was lettered by John Costanza and was colored by Joe Mignot. And Charles Adlard, he was an artist on many comic titles, including Judge Dredd and the X-Files comic. And of course, he also worked on a little thing called the Walking Dead comic from 2004 to 2019. So he's doing the realistic style. And like I said, Neil Sternecki comes and he does his little Warner's kind of mixed in. So it's a really cool style. It basically has Mulder and Scully, or Moldy and Scowly, I think, right?
Yeah.
Moldy and Scowly, and they're investigating an alien ship that has crashed, and it's the Warner Tower, or at least the very tip of it has crashed somehow in these woods. And Mulder, or Moldy, goes to investigate, and the door kind of flops open on top of him, knocking him out. That's essentially what happens right there. This was a cool little intro. What did you guys think about it? Nathan, let's start with you.
It was cool art, and it's funny that Wacko can't drive or something. I don't know. Something like that.
It really goes to our theory that the Warners are Time Lords. It kind of reminded me, like, Nathan has this theory, and one of these days we're going to have an episode. I keep saying it. We're going to do it. The Warners are Time Lords, and the water tower is a TARDIS.
Yeah.
This is canon.
There's lots of evidence for it.
There's lots of evidence. They're going back in time, and now there's even more evidence that they're flying around the place and crashing.
Bigger on the inside.
Yes, all these different things.
I love this theory. I love it.
It's a great theory, and it's true. But Kelly, what did you think was cool about this opening here?
I thought the names were funny. Moldy and Scowly.
Yes. And you actually watched the X-Files, right, growing up?
Yes.
Yes. It was too confusing for me. And I think...
No, it was fun. I mean, but the last season or two weren't great, but...
I could never get it. I could never
really
get
good at its peak.
Yeah, my husband made me watch X-Files after a time, and I ended up really enjoying it, but he says, we stop at, what was it, season 5? And I was like, but what else have I seen? No, we stop.
Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll get more into X-Files kind of talking a little bit, because this is pretty much all the entire issue is talking about. Mm-hmm. But Joanna, what did you think about this opening segment?
I really love this opening. I think it's got a lot of really good jokes in it. Just like, the mist was coming in, and it didn't do much for our search, but it made our flashlights look really cool. Just little stuff like that. And I just love the jokes in the dialogue, juxtaposed with the really serious artwork. And I wish the whole story had been this style, with just the Warners in this world.
Yeah.
And that's part of what confused me originally. I was like, why did the story change? Like, this was great. why is it a different story now?
Yes, exactly. It does go into a different style right at this point, where it goes to the next page, which is Sheep. It's called Sheep! Exclamation mark. And it's written by Dave King, but it has different illustrators, so the look completely changes. Illustrated by Omar Aranda and Scott McCrae. It's lettered by Teresa Davidson, and colored once again by Joe Mignot. And Kelly, why don't you tell us what happens if you can? Because this
please tell us what happens.
Both of these stories, are kind of
confusing. I think.
The least confusing parts are the opening and closing. Mm-hmm. Then we have a Pinky and the Brain and an Warner segment that are very. We can think we understand what's going on, but you don't know why. And I guess. Okay, well, Kelly, tell us what happens here in Sheep.
Okay, I guess. As I knew it was coming time for me to start talking about this, I was thinking back and I was like, there were panels in this thing. I didn't even know what was going on. And I will give the caveat that I was reading this on my phone. But I was going very slowly and reading everything, but I was like, I'm still lost. So, the Warner siblings come in their water tower. So they end up going to the FBI office and becoming FBI agents because of the quote-unquote accident.
Yes, it's right. It is connected.
Oh, it is connected. You didn't know that?
I forgot that one little throwaway line. I just thought that it was a totally different thing. But no, this is connected to the beginning. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forgot.
Oh, good. So I got something right.
Yes.
And then there's a panel with a guy in a truck, and it looks like he's climbing out of the truck or falling out of the truck. I'm not clear on that. It's a red pickup truck, and then they see tufts of white stuff on a tree, and they're like, "What is this?" And I think it's one of the locals who says it's the type of tree. It's a Venus something.
Venus fir tree.
Yeah, Venus fir tree. Yeah.
And hadn't you ever heard of a Venus fir tree or something? And somewhere in all this, they talk to a guy named Sorethroat, which, and he's trying to give them, I guess, some hints and help them out with the case. Which, again, I'm not clear on what the case is at this point. And that's a reference to Deep Throat in the X-Files, who was a recurring character who helped them out with their cases. And then you find out, like, the stuff on the trees, I think, is actually the from the sheep. So now we get the sheep involved. And sheep keep bouncing up and down. And they manage to track the sheep to the rubber factory because they're using rubber to make the sheeps bounce for some reason.
Well, I think Yakko is able to do this exposition. This is about the clearest you get, is why are the sheep bouncing? And he says to this guy who works in the plant, I believe your company is a front for a secret government agency and that you're genetically splicing rubber into the sheep DNA as part of a test to determine the benefits and military application of bouncing farm animals. So,
right.
It's about the only explanation.
I mean, it still doesn't really say why they're doing it, but I guess they're doing it just to find out what they could do with it.
Yes.
I think it was supposed to be funny.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
This comic's supposed to be funny?
Well,
I like that.
There is a line.
There was one funny. No, I think I know where you're going.
Yes.
There was one funny point where, because when they're out on the street, they asked this kid, have you seen anything funny? He's like, in this comic, no. And I was like, oh, that kid is all of us, right?
He's the funniest person in this comic.
That was it.
Yes.
So that's all. That's all I got out of it.
But there's a big reveal. You forgot the big reveal at the end.
The very end.
At the very end, after they determine that what this company may or may not be doing with these bouncing sheep, the coughing man, or instead of the smoking man, or Deep Throat, or whatever. Go ahead, Kelly.
No, I don't remember.
You don't remember? Nathan, tell us what happens.
All right, so they're talking like, looks like our plans were foiled. So this is the cop and the cougher or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
They're both coughing.
They're both coughing. There's
the whole
a lot
time.
of coughing going on.
So anyways, they're like, and then they start ripping off their skin, and they're giant ants. And
Oh,
this
yeah.
there was a hint
I guess
to
I
this.
missed the transition, but I remember that panel.
Yeah.
With the ants. I was like, what is going on with this?
And so then they were basically saying that the sheep were all guinea pigs or something to help, because eventually they're going to come and they're going to eat all the humans' brains.
Yeah, and all their people can come over and take over Earth.
Yeah,
It's
and that's
basically-
where it
God.
ends.
It-
It just
That's
ends.
it
it
ends
just
like
got
that.
weird.
And you could see the coughing man and the detective were both trying not to help the Warners the whole time, even though they seemed like they were trying to help them. So,
I didn't catch that.
so yeah, if you like the smoking guy, I don't know, the coughing guy, he's saying, don't go there. It's too dangerous. It's trouble. And this is just the tip of the anthill, he says. Which and they're ants, and then the cop's like, oh, I don't know anything suspicious. I don't know. There's nothing's happening. And behind him, there's like crop circles and things like that. And
And
that's why
a woman gets abducted by aliens behind them when they're
but
not
like
looking.
he never seems to care about any of it.
So this is kind of, and there's a lot of references to a lot of different things in this this comic as well. I mean, they bring out the Friends crowd. They talk about Baywatch. At one point,
Pinky and the Brain's in it.
Pinky and the Brain are in it, which is a good cross. There's actually a really clever thing that happens in this comic. The Pinky and the Brain are in the background in one frame, and it's just like, oh, they're in there. But it actually crosses over with the next story, which I thought was a good back and forth. And there's a constant timeline going on this. This is I can't even imagine how confusing this must be to somebody listening to us right now.
Right.
Because it's a very complicated, weird story with no clear explanation of motivation or anything like that, of what's going on exactly. And I kind of feel like it was meant to be that way, because just how the X-Files was always simply, at least I always got it from my point of view, was there was always conspiracies and you never really knew the whole truth of what was going on in every story.
Even what Mulder found out, it turned out it was only like what they wanted him to know.
It was always their way of basically saying, come back next week for some more answers and some more questions. So it really kind of felt like at the climax of the story, nothing really got solved because you weren't meant to get anything solved. But at the same time, it doesn't make a good story, especially for a one-off like this.
Yeah.
I just don't think it was very cleverly done. There's still some good gags in here, like the kid saying, like, this comic is stupid in the comic is pretty funny.
Yes.
But overall, this felt like it was written by someone who didn't like sort of get into the assignment, because this idea has a lot of potential. Like X-Files, there's just so much to make fun of, and they have a couple little lines that are really, really cool. Like Yakko at one point says, "Not every FBI agent is lucky enough to have his siblings abducted by aliens," which, after having seen the X-Files, that made me laugh.
Yeah, exactly.
So if it was more stuff like that, like a little more, I don't know. I keep going back to like, I can tell when somebody is doing something that they don't care about, because I do that a lot now. Where I'm just like, just get it done. I don't have time. Just get it done. So this comic felt a lot like, just get it done.
Yeah. One thing that was also confusing was when the cast of Friends came out, which kind of looked on model, some of them more than others. The girls just kind of like, just draw some sexy girls. I don't know. They look nothing.
Yeah.
Monica looks somewhat like Monica, and that she has short hair.
The main problem I had was Dot saying, hello, doctor, like that.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
I didn't like that at all.
I was like,
she says hello, nurse, to men.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but men can be nurses too.
Yeah.
Hello nurse.
Well, for me, I thought she was making sort of a deep cut reference to Joey's character, to Matt LeBlanc's character, Joey on Friends, who was playing a doctor on a soap opera.
And maybe that was it, but it didn't even. Is she even talking to Joey at that point?
I think so.
Yeah, she's talking to. Oh no, is it Chandler?
I thought she was talking to Chandler. See, and that's the thing.
No.
And the joke doesn't work out because of that. Because I'm just like, I can't even tell which character she's talking to. I can see Ross.
Right.
Yeah,
Ross is the only one.
There. I have no idea what Ross is sitting next to. Like, what is that? The one between Phoebe and Ross? Is that supposed to be Chandler?
I think that was supposed to be Joey, I thought. I don't
Chandler
know.
was-
I don't know.
It's just a thing. That's not a human face.
But it didn't work out. But then it go. Jokes didn't work.
Should have said hello, nurse. And
Should have said hello, nurse. And
She should have. Yeah. Like, and even if the writer was thinking, oh, this is a reference to Joey being a doctor, playing a doctor on that's too deep of a reference to be funny.
yeah. Well, anyway. Let's move on to our next little story right here. This is called Little Green Mice. Little Green Mice was written by Dave King. The art was by Walter Carzone. The ink was Scott McCrae. Letters were John Costanza. And colors were Demetrius Basukos. Whatever. But Nathan, tell us what happens here in Little Green Men.
All right.
Mice.
Well, we start off in a cabin in the woods, and the man is sleeping. Now, we should point out that they give little timestamps across this whole comic.
Yes.
So you could go back. This starts off before the Warner's one, and then it goes through the Warner's one. So you can cut back and forth. But this guy's sleeping. He hears some noises. His fridge is wide open, and the cheese starts flying out and goes through the ceiling. So that's how that starts. I don't know what's going on. We cut to the Acme lab with Pinky and the Brain, and they're hearing about this cheese incident on the news, and Brain starts thinking, hey, I bet these are aliens, and they're trying to get my attention, because clearly I'm not just a lab-created mouse. Doesn't make any sense. I'm clearly must be an alien of some sort, because that makes much more sense. Turns out Brain is insane and Pinky is the genius. I don't. And in the background, we can see that Scowly and Moldy are missing.
And
there's a little newspaper, so
It kind of connects with the original first part.
And then so they decide to dress up as Scowly and Moldy. So they're going to take on their identity, and they get on a bus, which is where you see them in the first comic. They're on a bus, and they go on a bus in this. And you can see in the background there's some suspicious men wearing trench coats, and you'll see them throughout this comic. If you're so there's a bald guy and a guy with gray in his hair. So keep that in mind. So they're driving. They're Pinky's annoying Brain. That's kind of weird. And they get to the house. And so they're investigating. They find a weird piece of paper, which doesn't make any sense, but it says top secret memo to all field agents from Deputy Director Skinny. Keep subject codename Acme away from Bronxton. So if anyone finds out what this means, let me know. But so they notice that the tops of the trees around the house are all burnt, and they're like, oh. But that means the mothership must have been there, but it doesn't tell us where they are now. And then someone falls out of a tree, and hey, it's a bald guy in a trench coat that was on the bus. That's kind of cool. And he runs away, and they start to chase after him, but they lose him, and instead they find Elvis. And then...
Elvis makes a cameo, just saying, kind of doing like the space probe joke of, hey, just leave me alone kind of joke, right?
But then they decide that they need to go to Wisconsin because that's where cheese is from. So they hitch a ride with the guy with gray in his hair that was also on the bus. But he turns out he's not going to Wisconsin. He's going to Nebraska. So they jump out, and there's this really ugly scene of them getting run over by a car. And they get to, finally, the cheese factory. And wouldn't you know it, the lights come on, and they run out because the mothership is right outside. They just know it, but it's going away, so they start ripping off their clothes. The mothership's just gone, and they blame it on the clothes that they're wearing, and then it turns out it's just helicopters. But Pinky and the Brain don't know this.
It was the secret agents.
It's the secret agents that have been following them, and they say, another night, another coup averted.
Coup.
And then another coup averted. A coup averted. And apparently this is just some sort of extortion that they're trying to...
I'm not exactly sure. Okay, well, anyway.
And then they get back to the lab, and Pinky has the power to make cheese float with his mind. Brain doesn't notice, and that's the end of that segment. So there you go.
There we
total
go.
sense.
It made absolutely zero sense. So nothing happened. Basically, Brain thinks there's an alien. They tries to explain. They never explain why Cheese is going missing. They never explain what the agents are doing.
I think it was Pinky, because Pinky can control Cheese with his mind.
At the very end, he can make Cheese float
So
with his brain.
it was probably Pinky did it while he was asleep.
I guess.
Or the
But again,
government.
this other issue raises a lot of questions, not a lot of jokes, and is just confusing. What did you guys think about this comic, Kelly? What did you think?
I mostly skimmed it.
And Joanna, is this all ripped out of your comic? Were you able to read this one?
Yeah, I wasn't able to read that one. It was not in my comic.
Well,
You didn't miss anything.
yeah, not much.
But I had a perfect retelling of it, so you got...
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't be more clear.
I tried to pay attention. I'm sorry.
It's about as confusing as it sounded. Well, it all wraps up. We get right back to the original style, the realistic style with Mulder and Scully. And Mulder is waking up, or Moldy is waking up, and Scully just kind of says, "Oh, you just, I just found you." And he goes, "Oh, no, it was aliens. Don't you understand? I just encountered some extraterrestrials." And she says, "Oh, no, if you're going to start up with Cher as an alien stuff again, I'm going home." And so Scully basically says, "I knew I should have just gone up for that part in Baywatch." And, Scully or whatever is saying, "Oh, the truth is out there. I'm going to look for it." And then it goes to England, Lancaster, England, somebody saying, "Oh, in shadows, you almost got us this time, Moldy." And then it goes all the way over to the Warner Brothers offices in Burbank with people in a writing room saying, "That writer in England still thinks he's pulling the strings around here. That's okay. It's what we editors want him to think, right? We may have wrapped up this story, but there'll be plenty more where that came from. Ha ha ha." And yeah, so if you thought it could be a little more wrapped up or, less confusing at the end, you're wrong. It was jumping around the place too at the end.
Yeah.
So
what I don't get is how long was Moldy unconscious for? Because it
just stood in there for days.
I know. The paper comes out at least a day later.
Yeah, the news was all that he's missing, but he was just unconscious 100 feet away from her.
An hour. Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
They're both missing too. So
well, that's why she stopped and she reported it. We're missing. We're lost. I don't know.
Well, it was like, was it a dream? Was it all a dream?
It was all a dream. I wish this comic was a dream. Well, let's go ahead. Let's go to our Water Tower rating. What do you guys think? Out of 5 Water Towers, how many would you give this comic book? Nathan, let's start with you.
I'll say 4.
4?
I've seen some really bad comics, and I thought this one had at least an idea for the whole thing, which I was proud of. That
it was tied together.
It was all tied
Nathan's
together.
very into tying things together.
I like that it had
themes.
The overall vision, even if it wasn't successful in that vision.
Still a 4.
I appreciate it, and comics, they're not really good usually, so this is also not very good.
All
but
right.
Better than some of the other ones, I think.
Kelly, what about you?
2.5.
2.5.
And the half comes from it being tied together, and also I only really read half of it.
It's a good half.
Which is why I wanted to discuss the first part, because the first part broke my brain. I didn't like it.
All right,
not really much at all. But I mean, I'm not so mean that I'm going to give it a 1, and I haven't read much of the comic, so I'm sure one of these days there might be a 1 or one worthy of a 1. But
all right, well, I'm going to give it a 2 because it was decent, but it wasn't great. I did like how it was connected, but it wasn't great, and there wasn't much funny stuff. But Joanna, last but not least, let's get to you. What did you think about today's comic?
I will split the difference and give it a 3.
All right.
Because I think it's a really good concept that just seemed really rushed. That they was like, oh, let's make like an X-Files episode. It was just like all these little loose plot threads, and we'll make fun of the show, and then we'll make reference to other things, and it just like, but it had to be thought out and tied together more elegantly. And also, you're right, it needed more jokes, because the one or two jokes that are in it are good. Like I like that other one where Dot is examining the thing in the microscope. She's like, I noticed that it's spliced together with something that I don't recognize. And somebody's like, wow, Dot's really smart. She's like, nah, it's just to advance the plot. She'll forget it by next issue. You know, stuff like that was really funny. But it also, since there was a lot of jokes like that, it was kind of a funny joke, but it was one of those lazy kind of jokes where you're just hanging a lantern on how little the writer cares about what they're doing. But it's a good concept, and I think if they pulled together and let's make the best X-Files Animaniacs parody ever, and just really bash our brains to make this perfect, that it would have. It's one of those. It's like a little throwaway comic. I don't blame them for just pooping it out. I might do the same thing. I wish they'd give it a little more attention, because it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
That's a really long answer. I'm sorry. Edit it.
No, it's all good.
3.
Done. Well, let's go ahead and get to our contact information. Nathan, where can people get in contact with you?
Twitter, Joey, Django FT, that's me.
All right. And Kelly, what about you?
I'm also on Twitter at Yoda Princess, YODAPRNCSS, or email me, Kelly at BigShinyRobot.com.
And Joanna, tell us once again, where can people find you?
I'm at Joe the Zet on Twitter, Instagram, and Joanna Davidovich on YouTube.
All right. And Joanna, once again, thank you so much for being on the show with us. It really was a treat. We really appreciate it, and we'd love to have you on again someday.
Oh, anytime. I really have so much to talk about when it comes to Animaniacs.
Oh, we appreciate it. And as for the Animanicast, if you folks that want to get in contact with us, you can go to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Of course, you could always email us, animanicast@retrozap.com. You could head over to animanicast.com and see all of our archived shows over at retrozap.com. And hey, speaking of retrozap.com, you should head over there, check out some awesome articles and podcasts and everything like that. Retrozap.com is the place to go for everything of your pop culture needs, whether it's podcasts like Brews and Blasters or whatever. My mom's in the other room, and she's starting to get loud right now, so I got to wrap things up. And you could also go to our Discord channel, discord.animanicast.com. We'll invite you into the RetroZap group. Well, that'll do it for today's episode. So, for Nathan, Kelly, and Joanna, this is Joey saying good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
This podcast is not endorsed by Warner Brothers or Amblin Entertainment and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Freakazoid, the Warner Brothers logo, all names, pictures, and sounds are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the Animanicast unless otherwise indicated.
I'm a bigger nerd than the fat guy from the Please Get Alive Foundation. Yakko said so.